Okay, here we go. Okay, I am excited to talk about pricing, but more importantly, there are new regulations that are coming out for um, people who sell online. And so we've all experienced this when you go to book like an Airbnb or you buy tickets. By the way, I'm going to Beyonce tomorrow. When people buy tickets online, you have all these like junk fees at the end, and you're like, oh, I've like played around so much to find the tickets that work for my price. And now I'm frustrated because at the end I got all these fees. So
hmm
obviously consumers don't like fees and they've spoken up, and that's why the FTC is putting in these new regulations. So this passed in December and is actually going into effect May 12th, where companies like Airbnb are not allowed to show junk fees. That doesn't mean that these fees don't exist. You remember that people who put their homes online are the ones who are setting the fees. Airbnb made it possible for them to add in all of these fees, right? Um, but when people add in a bunch of fees, it actually like irritates the customer, right? So there's a lot that we can learn from this. So I just want to like walk you through what the regulations was, the new rule, and what this means for us.
Great.
Okay, so what are junk fees? They are extra charges that are not shown up front. So these are appearing during the final checkout at the very last minute, when consumers are, going through their experience online. They're not aware that these fees are going to pop up, and sometimes they appear in fees that are just like you don't know what the fee actually means. Service fees, convenience fees, resort fees, booking fees. Have you ever just like you've gone to check out at your hotel and you're like, oh, what is this resort fee? Well, we have this resort fee for like $12 a person. And you're like, wait, where did this fee come from? Like this was never mentioned, right? And
hmm
it's frustrating, and they do pile up, right? It ends up being sometimes like 50, $100, like, kind of a significant amount over the amount that you expected to pay. And so the FTC took action. They felt like this was harming consumers. It was a bait and switch tactic, and people were feeling tricked and like they were wasting a lot of time going around and trying to figure out what things cost. And so over 70,000 comments were submitted to the FTC. I don't know about you, but I've never thought about reaching out to the FTC, like never in my life. Am I going to go out of my way to go do this? Like probably not, but I'm probably not going to buy the thing that I was looking to buy, right? I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to go to somewhere else someone who is showing the fees very clearly. And I feel like, okay, like they're being transparent about what things cost, even if they might cost a little bit more, right? It's just, there's not going to be any surprises with this vendor instead of that vendor. And so this requires the new law is basically like for event tickets and short-term lodging, all the fees must be shown up front and they must be prominent. But these other fees can still exist. They just need to be visible, shown immediately. And it sometimes consumers don't want to have like these like vague terms either, right? They don't want like convenience fee. It's not convenient for me to pay a fee, right? So they just bundle them in and show that fee up front as this is the net cost, right? Okay, so why does this matter to businesses like ours? When you are upfront, when you're very clear with what things cost, it builds trust. It shows that you're being honest, you're being transparent, you're being clear about what things cost, and it actually helps make your brand more respected, and it makes your clients feel respected too. So I do a lot of these online audits, and I'll see websites that'll say starting at, right? And so there's a lot of swing with our prices based on what the client's decisions are. And so I understand why people would want to put a starting at price, but this can definitely backfire, especially when people are tacking on fees like delivery fee, setup fee, late night pickup fee, large truck fee, distance fee, stair fee, elevator fee, rush fee, design fee, mock-up fee, venue access fee, minimum order fee, installation upcharge. All of these feel like fees. Like, well, why didn't you just tell me from the beginning that those fees would be, that they would be part of buying this service from you, right?
hmm
And so there's a way that we can communicate what things cost as a whole to our customers in a way that makes them feel like, okay, I understand that this cost this and that cost that, right? And certainly there are some fees that need to be charged. And so even if you're not trying to hide costs, it can feel like a bait and switch. So just know, like coming from the client end, they want to feel like they're in control. They want to feel like they're respected, you're respecting their time, and you're not hiding things and then revealing a fee, right? And so our opportunity is to show pricing clearly up front. We can also be upfront that there are going to be delivery fees, right? That's something that consumers have come to expect. Amazon's made delivery free all the time, but we know that they actually have to pay the trucking companies, the drivers. There are costs to have something delivered. This is a convenience that we've all gotten used to, but you can actually hide that fee in the cost of your setup or tack it on based on the distance, but be clear that, delivery is a cost, right? Okay, so let's do like a complete client reframe. When you go into a nail salon, you're not buying nail polish that's being resold to you in, in the number of drops, right? You're not buying a bottle of nail polish. You are buying the experience of getting your nails done, having them look better than you could do them yourself. They're probably going to last longer. They have equipment to make the gel sit nicely. They have the expertise to not have the paint like, on the edge of your cuticles. They have done this over and over again. They're the experts, and people are willing to pay for this luxurious service, right? We're doing the same thing. We are selling the service of providing an amazing event that's photo worthy, that's better than what they can do, right? So we're not reselling things. So when people buy online, they want to have a good understanding of what am I getting? What does it look like? What are the costs that are associated with this item? We can fully load these costs into the main item that they're buying. And then people are comfortable with incremental charges. Like if they wanted to add on the grad caps, they can see that, hey, if I add these on, this is what the cost will be. Again, we're not reselling balloons. We're reselling the convenience and the luxury of having someone who's a professional install custom decor for their event. So this is not a markup of a balloon, right? You might have to buy backups of the balloon, but you're taking your time really you're selling your time. At the end of the day, you're selling your time, and the markup, you'll see, I've done some calculations. The markup on these things that you're selling is very nominal. It's your time. And so I'm going to kind of reframe the way that we think about pricing. So you should reshift your mindset from when you reveal a price up front, when you show your pricing, you're showing your cards, you're showing the client what possibilities exist for them, right? You're showing them you can do X, Y, and Z, and these are what they will cost, and you have the right to charge whatever you want, right? And that will build trust with them that you're being transparent and this pricing is consistent across your customers, not because of what they said or the zip code that they're in or they're corporate, so now we're going to jack up the price, right? They're going to understand, okay, this is a reputable business that's transparent, and so by showing the price, you're earning trust with the client. And so again, what you're really selling is your expertise, your eye for design, your time, your team's effort, and you're providing the ability for them to have a stress-free event, right? And so when you have transparency, you can eliminate that friction. Obviously, there's a lot of friction that goes back and forth with trying to understand what the client wants, what they're going to be willing to pay for it. And so you're eliminating a lot of this by just like opening the kimono. Here you go. These are the things that we have. This is what you can do. And there's all the variations that you can do to meet your price point. So you can increase your conversions, attract more clients, and stop negotiating on your own value. When a client doesn't believe that your pricing is real, that you're making it up, they feel that there's more room to negotiate with you. They'll say, oh, well, can you do it for this? Can you do it for that? Because they feel like you just pulled the number out of thin air. But when they see, no, she has a structured way of pricing, this is a reputable business. This is what they do for all their clients. Okay, I'm going to choose X instead of Y because that meets my price point and achieves the event that I'm looking to go for. Okay, so again, pricing isn't math. It's not science. It's art, strategy, and knowing your worth. So how do we get to the right price? The price is actually, like, you can think it's all these things, it's this markup, it's this calculation, it's all this. It's actually, it all boils down to the price is what the market will bear, right? So do you guys understand what I mean by that? Like, it is not like your certain markup and your formula, and I've gotten to this perfect price. It's a combination of things. You need to cover your costs, and you need to ensure that you can pay your employees, pay for your overhead. But it's what the market will bear, what your market will bear, right? So it's obviously like, we want to look around at what our competitors are doing, but what will your customers pay for? Um, so some things to consider. If people will look at like the price of like a backdrop or something, oftentimes we're providing a premium backdrop that they can't just buy off of Amazon. And so some people they won't see it that way. They'll see, okay, you have this like cloth chair and I saw this on Amazon for $79. Why is this install so much more? Sometimes you have to show them the value. Hey, like this one on Amazon, the lettering's not going to stick. The framing on the bottom's the cloth's going to scrunch up. Like, there's reasons why you buy professional products as opposed to things on Amazon. It's going to be sturdier. It's going to have a more professional look. It doesn't look like a DIY type of install, right? So you have to sometimes explain to the client that, you're hand delivering it, you're setting it up, you're taking your time to do all this, but you're also providing premium things that they can't get. So they're probably not going to achieve the same look because you have the expertise and the trial and error to make sure that these things look right and you have pictures to prove it, right? Local market comparison. So some people will post on their website, and I recommend like go take a look. Like they'll say, oh, X amount per foot, and then they'll have all these caveats on there. So sometimes it is really hard to price compare, even as a professional. So you want to know what people are charging in your area. I'm in Los Angeles. It's very common for people to be around the $30 a foot for organic decor. That's kind of like a standard that we all have kind of come to know, but people, of course, are underpricing and overpricing, right? And that may be based on expertise. It may be based on volume, right? If they have a lot of volume coming in, they're a very premier business. They have the ability to charge $35, $40 a foot, right? I can't charge that. I'm not that good. But if they are able to get people in the door consistently, then they should raise their prices so they can make more money per event and not be, stressed out running around to a bunch of events, right? They can, taper it off. That's just, standard supply and demand, right? Obviously, you need to factor in time, labor, and logistics. The time, this is the most miscalculated number in everybody's business. Alyssa has been doing this for a very long time, but there are still events where, one of her employees is going to have, some things are going to come up, and she thought that this was going to take 30 minutes. It ended up taking 2 hours. These are common things that happen across even the most seasoned professionals. So, you're gonna, you have a good understanding of like what things cost, what for delivery, how long does it take to create the garland, how long does it take for you to set up a certain type of design. You have these numbers kind of already like in your mind, and you're gonna make rough estimates. But my partner and I do this all the time. We back into the total amount, we take out the cost, and then we're like, what was our hourly rate on that one? We're constantly reversing like our hourly rate, like how much do we make for that event? And so one weekend we had a jam-packed weekend, and we tried to do it for every single event. And we were close on most of our events, making roughly the same amount per event. But there was one that was like, what happened? Right? We did some things that we had never done before. It was wildly different. Other things came up like that were going on for the event person, and certain things were like a mess in their own setup. So it was like these things cause delays and more time on site. Those are things you just can't prevent, right? So while we want to make sure that we take these things into account, there's always going to be error. There's always going to, and you need to make room for error. And like I just said, supply and demand. When you get, too many inquiries, maybe you're the cheapest in town and you've like built up your volume, but maybe you should taper that off and get to the right price point. You could probably be charging more and making more without burning yourself out. Or if you're getting, you're not really getting many inquiries, not many bookings, maybe your pricing's too high, and maybe that's okay to bring it down, try to increase your volume, get those repeat customers talking about you, and then over time you can bring your prices back up. And again, this is all about perceived value. So in LA, people are very willing to spend money on creating an amazing event. There's a lot of keeping up with the Joneses here. People, everyone has balloons and decor for their kid's first birthday. Like that's especially like certain communities, certain, certain areas, they're going to say, no, like we have to have like the best decor and we want, X. And then other people are, not maybe going to value what you're doing as much. And so they might not be your customer. And so as we build our pricing model, it's not ridiculous to track balloon costs, but it is ridiculous to obsess over them when you're offering a premium service. So I see people always wanting to calculate off the cost of their product. We use premium professional products, and so these are going to be more expensive than what the consumer buys, but it also gives us the confidence that we're going to achieve a really nice look for our decor. The client can't replicate that. Balloons aren't going to be popping mid birthday song, right? We have like confidence in what we put out there, and we want to stand behind our brand, and that's what's going to get other people referring you, right? So I will show you some costs, but quick reality check, like your product per foot is such a small amount. I'm going to show you a calculator. So when you're obsessing over like, what do I charge per foot? It's really not, it's like the same thing as the nail polish. You shouldn't be marking up the bottle of nail polish. It's mostly your time. You want to make sure you cover your costs, but 90% of the value is in your expertise, your time, and your execution. So for pricing on Fanfaire, we want to provide clarity and credibility. We do this through a consistent model. And so the first thing you want to do is figure out, what do your individual tiers mean? I have a lot of businesses who like to rent out a backdrop without any balloons on it. We don't do that. But there is the tier of not having, you can always rent out items without charging for the balloons. In our, our first iteration of Fanfaire in our shared catalog, our tiers go like this. They are pretty much classic decor in one size. So all the balloons are 11 inches. The second tier is a step above that with more details. So like 5-inch balloons. Our premium tier, which all of our menu items land on, is our organic, which is usually 11-inch, 5-inch, and 17 or 18-inch in an organic style. And then our most expensive is usually more detailing, like the balloon chains, and then like adding in some 24 inches. You can decide whatever that definition is for your catalog. It doesn't matter. Have you guys heard of price anchoring? You want to show, when you show pricing, you want to show something that costs more expensive, that is like outside of your norm, right? You want to show something that's going to cost more than what most people are going to pick. And so that's why we've defaulted our other catalog on this premium tier, so that they can see something that's like, oh, well, this would cost this. So it raises the bar for what the client expects things to cost. And so if they want that, right, they want these two are both going to be great options, right? They can see, okay, I'm willing to go above and beyond with my budget to get this show-stopping look. Or, hey, this is what everyone buys. That's going to look awesome. I've seen this business's pictures, and I think like this is a great look for me. This is more for like the budget conscious person. And this is just faster, more efficient for you to do. Like, it's going to cost you less in time and in product. So that's just one way to think about it. You can literally design your catalog to be any way you want it. So I'm going to jump over to the calculator. And I want to just show you something. So this is somewhat of a reframe for you. So I've gone through the products that are featured in Fanfaire and the ones that, so it's mostly Sempertex, Tough Tex, and Calisan, and we obsess over this price per foot, right? And so I just want to just like put this out here and play numbers for you so you can see. On your Fanfaire pricing matrix, this is what it is. So it's your cost per foot. And so it's least expensive to most expensive. My classic decor is at 25 a foot. Sometimes a lot of people are closer to 20. My premium's at 30 and most expensive at 33. And then if I look at so this is like a series of calculations for Sempertex, Tuftex, and Calisan, and I even had Qualitex in there too, which was a more expensive brand. For classic decor, if I across all of these brands and I cost average these, it's roughly 181 a foot. Now that foot can vary if you are blowing your balloons up really big or not as big, right? If you're using more balloons, but roughly across all of these brands, it cost averages out to $1.81 a foot in product. And then with the larger sizes, and so this is like stretched across a 12-foot garland, then divided up. So I have a more consistent foot, right? So the most is like 316 a foot. So this is a simple calculator for you to use. You can edit the things in yellow. So you want to edit first your cost per foot, your hourly rate, and then here are some examples of what classic decor in one size would be: a 6-foot column or an arrow pole arch, right? So again, pricing is based off of the product as well as your time. And so time is the most miscalculated thing. And so you notice if you speed up your time on these things, you make more money, right? But we know it doesn't always necessarily translate like that. If you're not that busy, you could take 3 hours on building a 12-foot organic garland. You can take 20 minutes if you're doing it yourself. You don't value your time the same way. But if you're paying an employee, you should think about working and paying yourself as if you're an hourly employee. Okay. So most business owners want at least $50 an hour. My business partner and I expect a lot more than that. So if you were to pay somebody, you could just put that number in there: 25 bucks an hour, 20 bucks an hour, $18 an hour. This is the number of feet, the number of minutes it takes. Same here, right? Maybe 50 minutes is too long for this. Maybe this should be like 35 minutes. Maybe this should be 15 minutes. You can adjust these all you want. And it'll tell you the cost for the balloons. The hourly wage is populated. It just repopulates here, so you can change it, right? And then after your total cost of your labor and your product, this is what you've spent, right? And so this does not include overhead, right? And then this is your sales price. So this is your profit per unit, excluding overhead. Okay. And so that gives you a simple way to think about it. Alyssa and other businesses who are busy often calculate their overhead costs into every single gig. That's a good way to do it. But you also, if you're a smaller business, you have to think about, you might have to, if you only have like 1 to 5 gigs a month, it's varying. You actually have to factor all of those costs into like your first gig. You might make nothing on that first gig. You have to pay those costs either way, right? So it usually comes out of, right off the top every month because you're not getting out of paying those things. We're a small business. We work from home. Our overhead costs are very low. We don't have a rental space. We don't have storage. We don't have a lot of added fees, right? And so our profit per unit is pretty high. And so you see, the faster you go, the more you can make per unit. And so this will tell you on an arrow pole, 20-foot classic arch, if you're charging $500 for it, your profit's really hefty, right? And so what does that mean? You can pay yourself more, right? At the end of the day, you can pay yourself more. And so that's where the profit should be going, to increasing your hourly rate. So you feel like, hey, this is worth my time. I'm enjoying my business and I'm making good money by doing this. Okay. So I'm going to show you on Fanfaire now how we incorporate the pricing. Just reshare my screen. Okay. So I've gone into the design studio. These are my designs. And I just created one for graduation. Okay, so we have a new release. I'm very excited. So in the variants section, whichever variant you click on, so this was like my simple setup, right? I want to rent out grad marquees for graduation parties. And in the tagging, we make it very clear and straightforward to have a consistent pricing model. And then our clients will add on those additional details like I showed on the previous slide. So obviously I've tagged it to the backdrops, our style, and I've tagged this as moderate. And so in this price tier, it's $27 for me. This is pulling from my pricing matrix. And the calculation is $27 times the 10 feet that I've identified. I was saying 5 and 5 on each side. And then the added price is for the rental of the marquees and the pickup fee. Any other fees, if you have an installation fee or any of these things, you should actually load that installation fee into your cost per foot, not into necessarily. And if you have like a setup fee for this backdrop or whatever, like maybe you load it in there as well. But that's the fee all in of installing those marquee letters right here. And then it totals out the price. And so this one's 510. And then if I want to, this one's a little bit more detailed. It's in a higher price tier. This is the same 10 feet. It's the $30 a foot now. And so this one's 540. So it's incrementally just a little bit more. Now let's go for the showstopper. This is a much fuller look. I'm saying this is 24 feet. This one is a lot more expensive. Maybe that's not even 24 feet. Let's call that, let's see, 20 feet. It's 840, and this is calculated off of this price tier. So you might be looking at your own designs and be like, you'll be able to tell, is someone going to pay this in my market? Would they do that? Right? And so what is it worth to the client? And what are people mostly going to fall into? Are they going to want this fuller look? Are people going to be willing to pay for that? And then obviously the client is paying incrementally, like if they're going to add the grad caps or whatever, you could certainly stage it that way from the design studio. If you were like, okay, this is a short-term seasonal sell, I want to stage it with these grad caps and I want to price that in. If you don't stage it with that, obviously they can add those on the digital storefront. So this creates a consistent way for you to do it. I always recommend doing it from like least expensive to most expensive. And then putting the most popular tag from your main menu so that the client lands in something that people love, you want to sell that, right? But there's always an upsell, right? You always want to offer an upsell. You don't want to set all of your most popular designs because then the client is choosing something lesser, right? So I'll pause there. That was a lot of information, surely stuff that you already knew, but maybe just like reaffirmed for you that, you got a price for value. Do you guys have any questions so far? Comments?
I'm pricing everything as we go and it's really easy.
Yay! Well, so if you've already selected the number of feet and the added charge, and as well as like the tag of like which tier it's in, it'll already automatically price it. So anything you've already done, but you want to go back and look just to be like, so we're also going to surface the price right here. So you have it at a glance. So I'm really excited about that. That should be in the next day or so.
Yeah, it's really easy. So where I'm making some changes is on ones where it's still going to be 8 foot, but they're choosing their own topper because then when they add their own topper, that's going to be adding the cost to it. So I'm subtracting out the cost of the one that's on there, for instance. So that way then they'll be priced correctly. And then for some of them, just adding some of the additional embellishments if we had it in. But yeah, it's working great. So it's awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. So a few ways to test if your pricing is right. I would just like, these are a couple exercises that I run some of my new customers through. So I do a lot of just like 12-foot garlands, right? That is easy for us to crank out. We make a lot of money on that. People can pick it up or it takes us 2 seconds to install. So it's a profitable item for us. So if you take the cost that you normally charge, so a lot of people will say, okay, it's call it 250 for a 12-foot garland. So 250 divided by 12, $20.83. So, and that's in your organic. So for the amount of time that it takes you, we can go back to that spreadsheet. Do you feel like one, it's a fair price, and that pricing for that garland works across your other installations. If you feel like your pricing is getting too high, like these marquees in LA go anywhere from 40 to, believe it or not, like 150 per letter. It's insane. So we don't charge that much. But um the cost of this plus that, does the pricing look right? So as you start, so if your pricing is starting to look consistently like too high, I encourage you to go revisit your garland by the foot pricing to see if that's right.
So one of the things that I noticed too, which is nice, is that like we already have some of our things priced on our website. So and it's coming up as like 126, but you can put in a -1 for your additional cost. So then it does bring it down to the 125 if you do like to, say for instance, have things that are priced at a specific price point.
Yeah, you can also do um fixed. So I the number that you enter in for the number of feet is visible to the client in the cart. You want to
Hmm.
show them like this is how large the thing is, right?
Hmm.
Um, so I definitely prefer it that way. For things that are like odd, like I just did this hot air balloon, right? That is not a normal number of feet, or like the rainbow. It's not a
Hmm.
normal number of feet. For that hot air balloon that is, it's a 6 foot hot air balloon with a bunch of detailing, it's going to take you a long time. You can also not put the number of feet and just put a fixed price on there, right? Which would be in the added charge. So, and some things like maybe you just, like a certain helium balloon that's like,
Hmm.
you might want to just have like a fixed price on that, because you're just, you're cranking that out and reselling it. It's not really like a formula. But for the items in the balloons by the foot section, the client can add on or take away balloons. And so you want to be able to have the client consistently increase the number that's also protecting your margins, your time, right? And so then it's a specific formula that shows the client, okay, as I make this thing bigger, I'm getting a consistent price, and you know that, hey, I'm always going to be charging a consistent way, right?
Hmm.
The other thing is to think about is like when some people will want to price compare, right? We're always going to have price shoppers. I price compare. Um, so what is the perceived value of a rental based on what they see online? And so I've had customers want to buy their own cloth backdrop before. And obviously it's not going to look as good. So you have to tell them like the reasons why they would want to do that. Like the lettering's not going to stick. It's going to be very, it's going to be very floppy. Like so then you tell them, hey, okay, you should probably weight the thing down. Even indoors, we weight our cloth backdrop because we want to make sure that it stays in place, that it looks good, right? So you're gonna have to, you'll tell them these things, and then they'll start to be like, okay, wait a minute, maybe I should have just left this up. It's not really gonna cost that much more. It makes sense to have the business worry about it, make the lettering look good, make the whole backdrop look nice, right? Same with like a wooden tiara. Most people are not gonna want to like lug the thing, but they might be like, well, I can get, you know, a piece of plywood, and then I can cut it, and then I can paint it, and I can do all this stuff. And you're like, okay, it's gonna take you like a couple days to do all that work. And you're probably gonna use it like once more. So price it at a reasonable rate that is comparable. So here I would say like I would pay 125, 150 bucks to not have to do any of that, maybe more, right? And so think about those things that way. So, some people are going to buy the cheapy cloth one for $25 on Amazon. I saw one for $25 when I was doing some research to put this presentation together. And I'm like, wow, like that is so cheap, but those balloons are going to look so heavy on that chintzy backdrop and like the cloth hanging there, it's like, why spend all the money on the balloons and not achieve the full look, So just have a frame of reference. Like I see people mark up things like really ridiculously, and it's like they can buy that same thing. Like don't mark it up more than the price you paid for it, right? Like if you're reusing that thing over and over again, it's reasonable to mark it up like roughly within the same price point. But if they can buy that thing and they're going to reuse it at the same price point that you're buying it at, right? It, unless you've done something to the backdrop, which then all those things are going to cost more that they can't do, right?
Yeah, like our general rule of thumb is that if somebody, well, if it's I think it's different too. If it's something that we know that we're bringing in as a rental, then we want to, that's going to definitely be re-rented, then we usually want it to be paid off on the second time that we rent it. But if it's something that's a special order, then they pay for the entire thing the first time. Like if it's custom or if we're ordering it in for them specifically because that's what they want for their book or for their look. But that would be something that's more like when we got the Monsters Inc. doors in, like who knows if I'll rent them again. So I charge her the full amount for those, but then I'll rent them at the lower cost moving forward, just because from there on it's going to be profit.
So
Like,
did
but we
you, so
we
the Monsters Inc. door, did
yeah.
you charge them the rate that you bought it for? Or did you charge?
No, I added on to it because I don't know if I'm going to rent it again. So on something like that, I need to make money the
Right,
first time.
right,
So,
right.
but if it's something that's generic, like, a white arch wall, you know that you're going to keep renting it.
Okay, so like a pedestal that costs 125 online.
Hmm.
Um, what would you charge for that? It's probably say it's neutral,
Probably 75. We rent our pedestals for 75 for
75.
the nice ones and 50 for our more chintzy ones.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So that's a reasonable price. You're not losing money in the first one because you're gonna keep renting it, and that's something that you can just like keep renting over and over again. It's easy to load in. There's no setup. You just plop it down there, right?
Well, it's like if you get a candy cart, you're not going to rent it for 900 the first time. But so on something like that, you want to kind of break even on 3 rentals for it because we rent ours for 350 and we paid each time. So after 3 rentals, it was completely paid for.
So do you let somebody rent that without balloons on it?
Yeah, they do. Hmm.
Okay.
So because sometimes it goes out as a floral cart, not a candy cart.
Hmm.
So because that's really popular right now. But then we also make money on the customization because we'll, like add a fabric topper to it or add a sign to the front or still do other things to it, probably about 80% of the time.
Hmm. Now, how about like custom decals? Often, like to order something like that on Etsy,
Hmm.
I mean, I price shopped around. By the time you get it shipped and all that, even if you mess around with it over and over again, roughly 55, $60,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, so what we do for that is if it's something that's simple that we could make, then we just cut it on the Cricut and like our entry price for that is 35. It's anywhere from like $35 up. But if they want something that's really custom, then we have them buy it on Etsy and we charge $15 to install it. So we'll put it on for them, but we just have them handle it. I try, except for my custom backdrops, I don't order things through a third party seller like Etsy because I'm always worried that if that person doesn't come through, then it's going to be on me. So if they want to get that, then
Yeah.
I put the onus on them for it. So,
Yeah, same. Yeah, Etsy also the shipping times can be like really wild and like take a while too. So it's like,
mhm.
yeah,
Yeah. So I don't want to get stuck and be holding the bag for something where it's not, where it's out of my control.
yep. Okay. Any comments? Any feedbacks? You guys want the calculator?
I just found the negative sign on the pricing. So I'm excited. Thank you. Sometimes I get confused because, like the columns, for example, like spiral column for me is $85. So if
Hmm.
I put that it's 6 feet, obviously it's charging it per foot.
Hmm.
So then I kept just doing less feet so that it would match, but then it would not make sense, right?
Hmm.
So until now that you said there's a negative.
But hold
I
Yeah.
on
found
though. So maybe you need to adjust that pricing tier, right? So if I go back to it, you have to define what the tier is. So if that tier is like classic decor always, and it's 6 feet and the math doesn't come out right,
Whoa.
right? You want to adjust that pricing tier to make it right rather than using the negative, because if you apply that pricing into, say, I have adjustable columns. Some people are like, we sell them in 6 feet, 8 feet, whatever, right?
Mhm.
So and obviously you can have all of those shown here. But if you want to put that in the balloons by the foot section and you want the client to be able to make these adjustable columns from 6 feet to 8 feet, you want that pricing consistency, right? And so adjust the pricing to be your correct $20 a foot or 18 a foot or whatever that is, so that it incrementally increases. That's part of building trust with clients. They see how transparent you are, you allow them to do whatever, and they're like, oh wow, like I know whatever I do. And so you always, so they, whatever they do is going to come out to be the right price that you're putting out to the world, right? And so you want to protect your margins there. You don't want to put this like negative unless you really have to, unless this is an anomaly, right? Like this is like kind of like a one-off, you know, right?
Okay. That
Yeah.
makes sense.
What I used it for more was like on just to either take off like $1 if it wasn't right, if it wasn't rounding correctly. But I also have them as specialty items because I just sell them at one size, so they're not going to be able to increase or change their height. But also for my fringe pulls, because my fringe pulls, I'm not going to charge the same as the column because I don't have the entire middle filled in with
Right.
balloons. So those are at a lower price point for me, but yet it's still the same height. But that's like so I wanted to keep the height the same if they're looking at it.
Mhm.
And that's still going to be in my lowest tier of pricing because my classic is always in my lowest tier of pricing. So there I like took out what's not filled in with balloons. So I like took out, $40 on one. And then on the other, we only do the 3 rows of balloons in the fringe. It's like our bargain thing that goes out. We do those at 65. So, but it's still going to be 7 foot tall.
Okay, I get it. So,
So RC, what are your pricing tiers? What's your least expensive?
I think it's 20
Okay.
because
And
it's 26 for regular, like organic.
okay.
Okay, here we go. So I have it. Come on. Yeah,
And when you say that
20.
you're
Sorry.
No, I was just asking a question. When you say that your column is 6 foot, is it 6 foot plus the topper, or is it a 4 foot column with like a 2 foot topper?
No, it's plus the topper. I mean, because if not, it'd make it like 8 feet,
Mm-hmm.
I guess.
Yeah. So I price mine at 50. So I price my classic at 15 a linear foot. So that might
Okay.
be that, which is pretty in line with where people seem to be priced around the country. So
Okay, I see what you're saying. So then that's where I made my first mistake.
that's okay. It's not a mistake. It's a learning opportunity.
Yeah. Okay, that's what it is.
Telling myself that yesterday as I was berating myself in my head over something.
I mean, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, because obviously classic is mostly just one size.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. Fixed it.
What
Let's
do you
see.
charge for your 6 foot column? 120?
No, for a classic spiral, I charge 85.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They won't pay me 120 for that.
Yeah, so if you do 6 times 15, then that brings you to $90. So that is pretty close to what your pricing is.
Yeah.
And then you could, if you need to, just take out the -5. Like on mine, it's pretty close. So I just had to take out, like, I just took out $1 because I had one of them show up at 126. So instead of being at 126, I wanted it to be at 125. So that's where I used it, just to round the price to make it
Got it.
more,
Okay, that
just to
makes
make it match what's on my, what's on our flyer that we send people.
yeah.
So why don't you define your tier? So maybe for you, it makes sense to have your least expensive tier be some of the classic decor that you're doing. And then if you have other classic decor that you charge more for or whatever, you could just have that be a step up, like $2 signs. And that could be from 15 to 18 or whatever, right? And then you can have your organic, I think you said, did you say 24?
26
26?
for
And
the
then
3 size, yeah.
something, and then something above that at, 28 or whatever, something that, so define what the tiers are. So then as you're going through all of your designs, obviously classic decor is going to have you're going to have more things that are in these two price tiers, and organic, you can have it be anywhere from here to here, right? So you can still make it flexible, but try to define them so like as you're going through, oh, I always, it's always $1 sign for all my classic stuff. All of my, the main stuff that I do for organic is always the $3 sign. And then you can deviate from there and be like, you know what, for this design, like I'm really not doing anything that elaborate. Like I'm actually going to choose the $2 sign, or like I've really overdone it, this classic thing with all this other stuff. I'm actually going to charge it in the next tier up. So define what they are. Each design you name the set. And so the set name should be something like, classic columns or whatever. And then you can name each column its own thing so you can describe it
Right.
more. Or you could also have a variant name that's like this, that's just like showing levels. Level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, or like basic to extravagant. You can name it whatever you want. So decide if you want to have all of yours be a further description of it. Like it's the name of the set is classic columns, and this one is called spiral. This one's called organic. This one's called, what's that? The square stacking. This is
Square pack.
square pack. So you can name it that instead for that set.
Mm.
And then that it can actually look different in your organic stuff. It can be like more, more fun naming convention, or you're describing what's happening in the picture, but you'll still have the main name of the whole set as a separate thing that you name up top, right? It'll be
Right.
right. Yeah. So just think of like what your structure is going to be, then adjust your matrix, and then it'll be more consistent across your designs. You're like, okay, now I have a plan. I'm going in with a plan to price this stuff rather than just like guessing, because otherwise your catalog will be kind of inconsistent. Like you'll still see the price of what you're selling it for and be able to eyeball it, but you also want consistency, so you have a clear formula. So as people add more feet or whatever, or they're trying to price compare, like if I did it like this or I did it like that, they can see the differences, and you're not like, because someone might compare a 12-foot garland that they can attach to a wall or a door frame versus
Mhm.
a tiara with balloons down one side. They might be pretty similar. They're trying to achieve a similar look. They want to stand in front of the garland. Do they want the backdrop or not? And so the difference should just be the rental cost of that backdrop. And then if they wanted to add lettering or whatever, right? That's the main
Mm.
difference, so that your pricing is still consistent from one design to the next.
Okay.
Right? So that's how people will price. They make them compare within a set, but they're also going to compare, well, if I did this for my event or if I did that for my event, right? Then there's still consistency. RC has consistency across all of our stuff. A 12-foot garland, whether I put it here or I put it there, is the same price structure, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So, mhm, mhm,
Okay, so I'm gonna stop the recording. I think.
mhm.